Well, Dr. Robert Malone resigned as vice chair of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices with the Trump administration. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Malone is, let me tell you, he is someone the MAHA community really trusted because he was an early mRNA vaccine researcher who warned about the COVID vaccine. He was deplatformed. He was censored. He later sued the Biden administration, where we've covered that case, for censorship. So when he joined the Trump administration, the Make America Healthy Again community, people like me who may have supported the Trump administration, who may not have otherwise, but this was an important tenet of our vote, took this as a good sign that the government was listening to evidence-based doctors and experts. Now, though, Dr. Malone has left the government, so maybe he can give us some insight on why the MAHA movement seems, stalled or deflated. Dr. Malone joins us today. He's the author of the book Psy-War, Exploring the New World Order. So, Dr. Malone, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you, how much progress do you think the MAHA movement has made inside the Trump administration if you were to give it a grade on what our expectations were in early 25 when Trump took office?
I guess the grade would have to be a C.
A C.
Yeah, it's not failing, and it's succeeding in many things, particularly relating to nutrition. The nutrition agenda and food safety, food integrity, improving the various SNAP benefits programs, the children's food in schools, et cetera, food for military personnel. But for instance, it had a major setback on the glyphosate policies. And of course, the thing that has a lot of people upset about is the willingness of the Trump administration to shut down any discussions about vaccine policy in advance of the midterms, consequent to some polling and some key figures in the West Wing that apparently find this discussion to be uncomfortable.
So would you say those voices inside of the White House, I don't know if you're able to name names or not, but I will, and you can just shake your head yes or no or blink twice if you're okay with that, Susie Wiles, and these individuals who are actively trying to torpedo, we've covered this on our show, so this is not flying off the handle here, but Susie Wiles specifically trying to torpedo the MAHA movement inside the White House. And should independents feel hurt by this, that they voted for Trump?
So I haven't heard specifically that Susie is the problem, and I was in pretty close communication with Bobby and his top leadership. Overton is a problem. Overton is Marty McCarty's former postdoc. She's a Hopkins MD, MPH. And the way I hear the storyline is that she is a major factor in influencing policy relating to this decision to shut down the secretary from discussing anything about vaccines and shut down any moves or discussions that will cause the populace to become alerted to more vaccine controversy. Apparently, the decision to make major change in the vaccine policy by realigning it with Western nations, kind of our peer nations, and cutting way back on the mandated vaccines, didn't play so well with the general electorate, according to the polling. But those polls are disputed. There's been a number of others that have come out since then that suggest that's not the case. But the general position has been that the MAHA voter only represents something in the range of 2 to 5% of the overall electorate that would potentially vote in favor in the midterm for the Republican Party candidates, particularly in the House, and that those people are expendable in the face of the risks of blowback from further vaccine controversy among the other slice of the Trump electorate.
Well, I indict the media on that, because the headlines around the new vaccine guidelines, which still very much allow you to take vaccines that are not on the mandated list, you still can go get them.
They're still fully subsidized, just like they were before.
And the media treats it as if...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been stunning watching the media hysteria around this. And thank you for posting my Cywar book, which foreshadows all of this and kind of gives you a window into the mechanics of how things work these days. And of course, it's even worse now with the advent of artificial intelligence. It's like everything is on hyperdrive. But the position that was taken, and it was very carefully nuanced by lawyers, et cetera, was that nobody's vaccines were taken away. Nobody's access to vaccines were taken away. None of the subsidies were taken away. None of the indemnification programs were taken away. Matter of fact, that was a hot button with the White House, was that the ACIP was going to probably vote in favor of withdrawal of the PrEP Act support for the mRNA products. But what was done was to place many of those vaccines in a category called shared decision-making. And what was so radical about shared decision-making was that it takes the position that you should have active, informed consent with your pediatrician or your physician about whether or not to accept a vaccine product. And somehow that's radical.
Yeah. I mean, the headlines are that RFK Jr. is taking away these vaccines when that wasn't. And so the media is actively trying to discourage you from researching each one for yourself and making your own decision, because it's no longer forced.
Or even just having a conversation with your physician and expecting your physician to be informed. One of the cores of the American Academy of Pediatrics lawsuit against Bobby, that was what has shut down all of this now because of this Fifth Circuit Court judge in Boston, is that it's going to cost pediatricians too much time and money to engage in informed consent with their patients. They object to this.
Okay.
The real thing behind that is they think that, they're on these schedules where they have to see a new kid every 15 minutes or less. That's the demand that's being placed on them because they've all gone corporate. And furthermore, most of them don't really understand vaccine science. It's quite complicated, and they don't understand the nuances of risk-benefit. And they just default back to some version of it's safe and effective, take it, it's your time.
When you look at the COVID vaccine, Dr. Malone, I'm curious about this. Obviously, you're there in the White House, you're there in the Trump administration under a leader who, of course, championed Operation Warp Speed, right? Pushed for the acceleration of getting this horrible.
And he's still dug in on these products being one of his great achievements. That's what I was
going to ask you. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around it. I mean,
it is a fact. And it's a reality here. And will the secretary be allowed to pursue the truth? Will people within the FDA that know what actually happened be allowed to pursue the truth? Well, a senior FDA leader was down on my farm just a couple of days ago sharing stories about what was observed by this person this person joined the Trump administration and Trump won about halfway through, was in the agency all the way through the Biden years, remains in the agency now, and has detailed understanding of what transpired. The stories are amazing. I'll just say it's going to make a great book one day, I hope. But beyond that, the moral transgressions, the corruption, the distortion of data, the falsification of data, the suppression of key findings, such as the pediatric deaths that are not being allowed to be released to the public.
Who's blocking that? So children deaths because of COVID-19 shots, that's being suppressed?
The name is Marty.
Marty Makary.
Yeah.
So you've named a few names now. Heidi Overton, Marty Makary. Really?
Who testified to Congress about against, mandates, vaccine mandates.
Yeah, so I really, there's a lot of dynamics that are going on. There is a huge amount of rumor mill going on about the reorg. As you know, there was just a major reorg at HHS with promotion of some key leaders from within the CMS group that's been so effective under Dr. Oz's leadership to positions where they're functionally chief operating officer for HHS. There's just been a major amount of change within the overall sixth floor operation. And of course, now we have a case where the nominated Surgeon General is not going to clear Senate approval. And so that's another issue.
I just want to put up, so just to be clear, Heidi Overton here, one of the big blockers of the MAHA movement. You mentioned Marty Makary, and you mentioned these pediatric childhood deaths from COVID shots, COVID-19 adverse effects. Have you seen that data? Can you tell us? You've seen the data. Can you tell us how many childhood deaths in the United States that they're blocking and hiding?
We don't know that answer. We don't know that number. What we do know is that there was a number of deaths reported in VAERS that were identified by Tracy Beth Hogue when she first came in as the FDA CDC ACIP liaison person. She's now the acting director of the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, CDER. So Tracy Beth Hogue went through, found a number of cases, drilled in on those cases, and found a half dozen that were incontrovertible. Those passed through re-review, I think twice at FDA. There was, Vinay, you'll recall, disclosed that this existed. But then suddenly there was silence about all of this because there was a decision not to disclose, because those cases are extremely troubling in terms of how they were handled within the CDC. Frankly, there has been significant cover-up all the way through the COVID crisis of a series of issues, not the least of which is the DNA adulteration. But that is what the record shows, and the leadership right now is not willing to allow that information to become public.
Wow. I mean, my jaw is dropping here. I mean, I'm sorry, you mentioned, I want to go back to this. Heidi Overton, what exactly specifically is she doing to block this at the White House? Is she or Marty Makary specifically responsible for hiding this data?
My understanding is that she's the one that is advocating the policy. She's one of the America First appointees.
Right.
So she specifically is the one that has been spearheading the interpretation of this internal poll that suggested that there is significant risk for raising issues about controversial issues around vaccines during the midterm, particularly for House members.
Wow.
And advocated that there be a complete cessation of any further discussion about vaccine policy and associated controversies, like, for instance, taking a position to withdraw coverage from the PrEP Act because we no longer have an emergency. Clearly, that's been over for a couple of years now. But withdrawing PrEP Act coverage, liability coverage for these mRNA products, that is absolutely something that the secretary could do at a moment's notice with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah, 2 sentences, he could remove the PrEP Act.
My understanding is the secretary supports that. I can't speak for him, but that's my understanding. But that is not a policy that will be allowed to proceed at this point.
I'm so confused. We played videos here of Dr. Marty's, I thought it was Makary, but whatever, of his testimony to Congress against vaccine mandates and criticizing the COVID vaccine rollouts, talking about infection-acquired immunity. Why would he do that if he's incurious of the effects, the harmful effects of something so my mind goes to
mandates. So there's a lot of nuance going on within this domain of what happened,
yeah.
and what the transgressions were. And so for instance, one of the topics that's allowed to be discussed is the lab leak theory. And so you've seen an explosion of information about the lab leak theory and various decisions and policy positions taken regarding that. The policies about mandating products that occurred during the Biden administration, and by the way, the censorship policies. I was just one of many, and I wasn't part of that lawsuit, by the way. My colleagues were. But in any case, those things are allowed to be criticized now.
Right.
What transpired within the government having to do with data, information, disclosure about adverse events, that is concerning the mRNA products. That's still a third rail. That's not really allowed to be discussed publicly. It's not even really discussed much internally. We discussed it at length within the ACIP COVID working group. And by having resigned, and by the way, I haven't left the government. I'm just switching over to working with the State Department and Undersecretary Donano on issues relating to the Biowarfare Convention. And in particular, I'm very intrigued by advancing the use of artificial intelligence to support compliance and detection of transgressions relating to the Biowarfare Convention, which is something that the president supports. So I'm not out, but in terms of the issues you're talking about and I'm trying to be a little diplomatic here. The failure to aggressively advance MAHA agendas beyond these very easy and politically acceptable things like nutrition.
Right.
So you can make the case that the easy things, the low-hanging fruit, are being picked, and things that aren't very controversial and do play well with the public are being advanced. But the harder things, which the secretary has been pursuing, frankly, for decades, vaccine transparency. He's not anti-vaccine. He's anti-propaganda. He's anti this vaccine religion. Vaccines, which is where, as a now 40-year, I guess, vaccine developer, a lot of the CHD kind of crowd hate me because I have a history of being a vaccine developer, and there are those who think I should be tried and hung because of what I did when I was 28 in establishing the foundations for the mRNA technology. But I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm anti-propaganda. I'm anti-mandate. I'm against this what Aaron Siri calls the religion of vaccines. This mantra, this religious mantra that all of these products are safe and effective, and it's acceptable to mandate them on the American public. It's not acceptable, and it's not necessary. What it does is well demonstrated. It absolutely drives distrust on the part of the American people. And you can compare that with the policies in Northern Europe, in particularly the Scandinavian states, where they don't have mandates and they have very high vaccine uptake for those vaccines that make sense.
Right.
But we have this bizarre, perverse incentive structure that's been created with the Vaccines for Children program and the indemnification, in which you have an industry that has run rampant. And it has to stop. And I absolutely support the secretary's position on that. But at this point, the secretary has been told to put a cork in it.
I want to ask you just one last question, because, again, the propaganda you're up against is happily disseminated by the mainstream media. They love it every time they can take a hit at Bobby Kennedy.
It's their bread and butter financially.
Yes. And so now they're hot and bothered about the measles, that not mandated in measles vaccines. You write about this a lot on your newsletter, which I want to.
The secretary has repeatedly said measles vaccines are effective. And early on they came out with this. 2 children died in West Texas. Okay, but both of those cases, if you review the case files, are clearly documented to be medical, frankly, malpractice, misdiagnosis, and failure to treat with appropriate antibiotics, secondary infections. They're not measles deaths. Right. But the media, this is a convenient trope. And we're now in an age in which infectious disease sells. This has become the new, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, if it has anything to do with infectious disease, by God, it's right in the forefront because it sells, clicks, likes, follows, and all the controversy around it gets amazing attention. I mean, come on. I resign from this dysfunctional committee that has been shut down by a activist judge in Boston, and it becomes international news, and there must be 30 or 40 articles out about it. It's not that big a deal, guys. And so it just illustrates that this is something that sells media, and it's become part of the ecosystem. And we've weaponized, we've politicized public health policy instead of examining it rationally and helping the public to make informed decisions, which is the position we should be in, instead of making it yet another partisan battle line.
With 1 minute left, people in the chat room are saying you got to ask him about chemtrails and the administration. I know Bobby Kennedy. No. Bobby Kennedy was pushing big on this.
I'm an expert on chemtrails. I've been writing about chemtrails ever since I was 8 years old.
So why is there not a greater push from this administration to end this chemical spraying in our skies? It's enough already.
Okay, so from my idiosyncratic outsider perspective, this goes way back to the 60s. Lyndon Johnson was an advocate of weather change. We have deep investment from the intelligence community in the technology for manipulating weather. Manipulation of weather is perceived as having great benefit in all kinds of parameters. Both domestically and internationally. And we still are dealing with the residue of the whole climate change propaganda. So why this administration clearly doesn't see this as a priority, as opposed to Ron DeSantis, to his credit. And I all I can speculate is that the influencers that have the ear of the president right now do not see this as a priority. And if people want it to be a priority, like with everything in this MAHA movement, they've got to get out there and make it quite clear that they care about this. And I don't see enough momentum. We can't even get enough momentum to push back against the administration's bottling up the secretary over vaccine policy. If MAHA or others want to make a dent in the use of these chemicals to manipulate weather, they've got to make it, really, really clear that this is an issue that a significant fraction of the electorate will vote for. And that, you can make that case. This material is raining down on our land. It's raining down in our air. It's another form of pollution. There's a lot of ways that this could be pursued politically, but it doesn't seem to have a advocacy electorate advocacy group that is sufficiently powerful and focused to make this a compelling argument within this administration, in my opinion.
Well, I want to suggest that everybody subscribe to your Substack because I learn a lot there. It's malone.news. please do subscribe, because a lot of times you do take this hysteria and you give us the medical data, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate it. The only thing I can say about this MAHA movement is that a lot of it overlaps with the anti-war movement, and we're pretty tired. We're busy screaming about things, at this point, but you're right. We have to, be the leaders.
Well, you're going to have to pick your battles, my friends.
I don't know how to do that.
You're getting too fragmented.
Yeah.
That's what's happened, and a case can be made that a lot of that fragmentation is intentional.
Yes.
And it's being driven by these kinds of technologies. And frankly, from what I know at the cutting edge of artificial intelligence, it's going to get far, far worse.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Doctor, we need to work on your bedside manner.
Sorry.
Yeah. Then later we'll talk about the medical effects of all the stress from all of it on me. So on all of us collectively.
Go get yourself a homestead like I did, and enjoy life, and smell the flowers and watch the fruit trees bloom.
Okay. Thank you,
Dr. Robert Malone, great to see you as always. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Doc.